Right, looks like the Max Nitra Armory deck is really cranking up. So, LSS and their marketing department are 2 for 2 currently. So, earlier today we got the showcase for the Armory deck versus Aurora. Now, it wasn't meant to be up, it has since been taken down, but it does mean we have the juicy new cards to go over. So, let's jump into things, starting off with what exactly is going on with Bankbreaker. So, we have a new card and basically our main interaction with Bankbreaker by way of Construct Bankbreaker. If you have a wrench weapon equipped, transform it and 3 Hyperdrivers you control into Bankbreaker, then equip Bankbreaker. Has go again, 0 cost and 3 block, so it's a nice yellow, pitchable, blockable, and playable, right? So beautiful, but it does mean that there are steps. We have to find the card before we can actually really utilize Bankbreaker, though we are still in Mech. We are still able to get an influx of action points, so I do think the twice per turn flexibility is still a bit better than, say, Banksy, but nonetheless, it is still looking pretty nice. So we do have to establish 3 Hyperdrivers, but it does mean that when we get Bankbreaker through Construct, we start with 4 charges, if you will, to be able to banish a card and give it Overpower and go again. So definitely 4 turns of double swinging, first with Overpower, then just as normal. Seems definitely nice, right? Especially once we find, say, Clamp Press. Altogether, it is again, a solid card for Max and his archetype going forward. We're getting heavier emphasis on Hyperdrivers, which is really nice, and it also means that you can technically stockpile cards for the bigger payoff of Construct Nitro Mechanoid, right? We could establish Bankbreaker over and over again and keep some of the Hyperdrivers under them to then just have a bunch more cards under Nitroid, right? Which means that we can swing and, mid-range to an endgame plan is definitely valid. For the equipment, we'll go over Fist Pump and Drive Break first. So both of these are basically a bigger incentive to take Hyperdrivers. Whenever you banish a Hyperdriver from boosting, target wrench you control gets +1 this turn. And then whenever you banish a Hyperdriver from boosting, remove a negative counter from this. I wish there was a little bit more of interaction with, say, Hyper Scrapper, right? And it was just straight up whenever you banish a Hyperdriver rather than directly from boosting. But still, nice nonetheless, right? More incentive to stick the Hyperdrivers on. Even if you boost them from your deck, you're getting some benefit. Drive Break itself is just, mech variant of a Valiant Dynamo, so it does seem like a really, really nice card for, again, the archetype that Max is currently going for. It is also worth noting, right, that this is the level of support needed to, get Hyperdriver Mech up to speed when, thinking about something like Gravy Bones, for instance, and Necro as a new class. So, yeah, we've already discussed the Armory deck, but food for thought. We also have a Twin Tech Charging Station. Next attack you boost this turn gets +3, and you may shuffle a Hyperdriver from your graveyard into your deck if you do gain a resource. So, a nice card. I don't think it sticks around, but again, we're getting a new rare as well, so there will be a chock full of rares in the Gravy Bones deck as well, I'd highly assume. But nonetheless, these are still really nice cards, and again, just overall greater support for Hyperdrivers, right? Meaning that we can reference, Blessing of Ingenuity as well. We can banish now our Hyperdrivers from boosting, and then Blessing of Ingenuity will allow us to put them straight back into the arena, right? So altogether, Max is doing his own thing and really just for the hype, right? As they stated in the post about the Armory deck. As for the chest, this is probably the most exciting piece, but also in a sense the most scary piece, because this is basically a absolute necessity for Max, or even, again, some variants of Mech going forward. It is just such a impactful chess piece, vastly different to what we've sort of seen, right, through Savage Sash. Although, again, they are nice and they are functional, they help do something alternatively to, say, Tunic or some of the other cards that you might run in your chest slot, whereas Puffer Jacket just seems like a straight archetype staple for Hyperdrivers. So non-token Hyperdrivers you control enter the arena with an additional Steam counter, and it still has Temper 2, so it has a nice amount of block. But yeah, every time you put a Hyperdriver into the arena, as long as it's a non-token, so not created through Max, but one of the reds, yellows, or blues, it starts with an extra Steam counter, which is pretty massive, right? For not only just resource generation through their boost effects, but then also enabling them to stick around for those construct cards or some of your other payoff cards, like Moonshot, right? So I do think that we're getting to the point where Moonshot, Hyper Scrapper, the looping of Hyperdrivers is getting definitely more functional, but Moonshot, for reference, play this only if you've boosted this turn. As an additional cost to play this, destroy X Hyperdrivers you control, where X is half the cost that you put into it, right? And when this attacks, it gets +3 for each Hyperdriver destroyed this way. If this has 10 or more power, it gets overpower. So you have to basically banish at least 3 Hyperdrivers or give it some other buff with 2. But overall, still a really nice mechanic, again, with Puffer Jacket, and it allowing us to basically stick the Hyperdrivers around for an extra turn at minimum. And then we have the loop of, again, getting them to your graveyard, getting them to your banish zone through Hyper Scrapper, right? And then, again, going back to Blessing of Ingenuity, putting them back on board. That's a very, very nice mechanic that I would like showcased and definitely made easier. But then we also have cards like Supercell, right? So, yeah, altogether, it's going to be nice. Again, a little bit of a miss with Supercell. I said this when it first came out in relation to Klloo, right? I'd much rather if it was just Construct as a type of card rather than Construct Nitromechanoid specifically, right? Because this would be fantastic for, again, re-enabling Bankbreaker over and over and getting those charges back and really going ham. It would incentivize being able to just overpower swing twice, right? And not care about the go again. But still, Supercell is definitely more and more relevant. Max is, again, just doing his own thing with Hyperdrivers. Now, head slot wise, we have our Breaker Helm Protoss. So when this defends, you may discard a Hyperdriver if you do draw a card, and this gets +1 until end of turn. Has temper, but more importantly, it is a base head, meaning that we can convert it to one of our Evos. So the 3 Evos that caught my eye are Command Center, Recall, and Circuit Breaker. So Command Center, again, functionally working well with Bankbreaker or our weapon in general. Recall, though, so when this is equipped, put up to 1 Mechanologist action card from your banish zone on top of your deck, which again, going back to the other Hyperdriver pieces, means that you could set it up to be able to boost one of them, which is definitely really nice, right? Or just know that, again, it is there on the top of your deck. Or in the case of Evo Circuit Breaker, we could then shuffle back attack action cards, which again has its own sort of sense of value. But another comparison to definitely make is the idea of taking a base head to convert into an Evo better than what already exists. So we have our Hyper X3 as our other functional Hyperdriver support. Whenever you banish a Hyperdriver from boosting, put it under this. Once per turn, when a Hyperdriver is put under this, if there are 3 or more, you get to draw a card. So the curiosity there for me, right, is again whether or not we're getting emphasis on Moonshot, Hyper Scrapper, and again looping Hyperdrivers, because with Hyper X3, right, once they're gone, right? Unless you destroy this and they get put in the graveyard, they're stuck, essentially, right? And the draw value is definitely nice from Hyper X3, but, you know, I'm leaning a little bit more towards being able to, again, cycle them, right? You have Hyper Scrapper as a blue pitchable for the early to mid game, right? And then in the late game, it becomes active, same with Moonshot, right? We also do have our Model I, right? So action, destroy this whenever you boost this turn, draw a card, put a card from your hand on top of your deck. Again, just starting with Arcane Barrier is the big functionality there, but then also being able to set up what cards we want to boost. In a sense, if we draw our Hyperdrivers and we want to boost them away instead of playing them, there's that. But altogether, it is definitely a nice headpiece, right? And yeah, functionally, I'm definitely going to go for the Evos, most likely, right? But I can still see the value of Hyper X3 overall. Now, in terms of Hyperdrivers, we still have other support. We have Gas Up, right? And then we have cards like Prismatic Lens, and again, Hyper Scrapper, different ways to functionally play them, use them, recycle them, right? Which I think is the idea that we're sort of seeing Maxx go for. Now, Maxx does create his own Hyperdrivers, but those, of course, are tokens, meaning you can slot them under cards, but if they're destroyed, they disappear, right? And you can't use them to the same extent as the 3 variants, right? So, yeah, food for thought. Now, lastly, the other thing to discuss would be, what does this mean for Data Doll? Because I do think Weapon Data Doll could be a thing. I don't think it outcompetes just the general itemness of Data Doll, but yeah, microprocessor, being able to find the Hyperdrivers, again, boosting them for the other equipment pieces. The wrench one in particular is what catches my eye, being able to set up boosting a Hyperdriver so that you get your wrench the +1 off the arms piece, and then again, going into your double swings is really nice value that is repeatable value, right? But as Data Doll, System Reset is nice. So while we don't have the crank bonus from playing Maxx, we do have the ability to put Hyperdrivers in play from boosting them, right? So System Reset to help stick them around. And then again, Prismatic Lens to be able to put Hyperdrivers back from our banish zone on top of our deck. But overall, even with our fancy new jacket that really does increase the playability of Hyperdrivers, for Data Doll's whole game, I think Klloo Foundry Heart is still significantly better, right? Hitting 2 items off of that is fantastic, regardless of, again, having the extra steam counter to make your Hyperdriver stick around. The big impact for me between the chest and Maxx is the fact that they're significantly easier, especially on the blue variants, to crank, right? And again, still have them stick around for that extra turn. But there we go. What are your thoughts? Are you pumped for the new Maxx Armory deck? I think the cards are fantastic. I think the level of support for X class, X card pool that we're getting in the Armory decks for the last couple have been just absolutely fantastic. So it does seem like this is our alternative product, if you will, to supplemental sets to really just help fix up some of the shortcomings of X-Hero. And yeah, Hyperdrivers being its own archetype is something I would really love to see, because again, I really just want Moonshot and Hyper Scrapper to be functionally workable and worth it, right? So it does seem like, again, setting them up, banishing them, and putting them back into play with something like Blessing of Ingenuity does seem like a fantastic idea. Anyway, hope you enjoyed. See ya.